quietly assume that reality is something you must reach. You speak of getting closer to the truth. You speak of approaching what is ultimate. You speak as if reality were distant and you were located somewhere else. This assumption rarely feels questionable. It feels built into the very idea of searching. Yet a quiet contradiction appears. If reality is what truly exists, where could it be located? And where would you be standing in relation to it? The Sufi philosopher Ibn Arabi challenged this hidden structure of thought. He did not ask how to reach reality. He asked whether reality could ever be an object of reaching at all. You say you are seeking the truth. But what exactly is moving toward what? Does seeking itself presuppose a distance that may not actually exist? Ibn Arabi worked within the framework of Islamic metaphysics, a tradition deeply concerned with existence, causality, and divine reality. Many thinkers of his time focused on explaining how the world was created and how humans could return to God through correct belief and practice. Ibn Arabi did not reject these concerns, but he approached them from a deeper angle. His primary question was not how to reach God. It was what it means for anything to exist at all, and what it means for existence to be known. He argued that much religious thinking assumed an unexamined gap between the human knower and ultimate reality. This gap structured theology, ethics, and spiritual discipline. Ibn Arabi questioned whether this gap truly existed. His ideas were controversial because they seemed to collapse the distance between seeker and sought. If there is no ultimate distance, then the entire model of spiritual progress must be re-examined. Why would a teaching that denies distance disturb established traditions? You tend to interpret dissatisfaction as evidence. Evidence that something essential is missing. Evidence that you are incomplete. Evidence that you have not yet arrived. This interpretation feels natural. But notice how quickly it appears. A feeling arises. The mind immediately concludes something is lacking. From this conclusion, seeking begins. You search for better understanding. You search for improved states. You search for meaning. This pattern becomes so familiar that it feels self-evident. But have you ever directly encountered lack itself? Or have you encountered experiences that are then labeled as lack? Confusion appears. Restlessness appears. Boredom appears. Each of these is an experience. None of them announce reality is absent. That conclusion is added by thought. The habit of seeking is built on interpretation, not on direct observation. You assume that dissatisfaction points to an objective absence. But what if dissatisfaction is simply an experience occurring within reality? Does the sense of lack describe reality? Or does it describe a pattern of thinking? Consider what it means to reach something. To reach implies distance. It implies that what is reached is not where you are. It implies two positions. One here, one there. This logic works for ordinary objects. You reach for a book because the book is not currently in your hand. But apply this same logic to reality. If reality is what exists, where exactly would it be located? And where would you be located if not within reality? The idea of reaching reality quietly assumes that you stand outside reality. But if you stood outside reality, you would not exist, because existence itself would be missing. The very notion of reaching reality collapses under examination. You can move toward objects within reality. You cannot move toward the condition that makes all movement possible. How could what includes everything be located somewhere else? Ibn Arabi insisted that ultimate reality is not an object among other objects. It is not something that appears alongside thoughts, sensations, or perceptions. It is what allows any appearance to occur. You can perceive a sound. You can perceive a sensation. You can perceive a thought, but you do not perceive the fact of being itself as an object. Being is not presented. Being is presupposed. Every experience silently assumes existence. Ibn Arabi argued that attempting to grasp reality as an object turns it into something it is not. It becomes one item among many, but reality, in his view, is not one thing. It is the condition of all things. This means that searching for reality as if it were hidden somewhere in experience is a mistake. The search itself is already occurring within what is being sought. Can the ground of knowing itself be known as a separate object? Spiritual traditions often describe a path, a journey, a movement from ignorance to knowledge. This language can be helpful, but it can also hide an assumption. It suggests that truth lies at the end of a process. It suggests that reality is a destination. Ibn Arabi did not deny transformation. He did not deny learning, but he questioned the idea that these processes move you closer to reality itself. They may clarify understanding. They may dissolve confusion, but they do not reduce distance from reality. Because distance was never real. If reality is the condition in which all experiences occur, then you have never been outside it. The idea of a path becomes symbolic. It describes the removal of misunderstanding, not movement toward an absent truth. Can a path exist if there is nowhere to go? You usually think of knowing as acquiring information. You learn facts. You accumulate knowledge. You store concepts. This model works well in many domains, but Ibn Arabi pointed to a different kind of knowing. Not knowing by addition. Knowing by recognition. Recognition means noticing what was already the case. Nothing new is created. Nothing is imported. A false assumption is simply dropped. You already understand this in simple situations. You search for your glasses. You realize they were already on your face. Nothing was gained. Only confusion ended. Ibn Arabi suggested that knowing reality is similar. Reality does not arrive. Confusion departs. This reverses the entire structure of seeking. You are not empty and in need of filling. You are present and mistaken about what presence means. What remains when nothing needs to be acquired? The idea that nothing must be reached can feel unsettling, not because it denies growth, but because it undermines identity. Much of identity is built around becoming. You are becoming better, becoming wiser, becoming more complete. These narratives give direction. They give structure. If reality cannot be reached, then the ultimate project of becoming collapses. The mind interprets this as loss of purpose, but purpose does not disappear. It changes form. You still learn. You still refine skills. You still correct mistakes. But these activities are no longer driven by metaphysical deficiency. They are functional, not compensatory. The mind resists this shift because it loses its central role as a self-improvement manager. Who are you without the project of becoming? If reality is not a destination, life does not become meaningless. It becomes immediate. You still act. You still choose. You still respond. You still make plans. But these movements are not oriented toward a final metaphysical arrival. They are oriented toward practical functioning. You study because understanding improves functioning. You act ethically because actions have consequences. You refine behavior because clarity matters, but none of this is framed as a ladder toward ultimate reality. Ultimate reality is not at the top of a ladder. It is the fact that a ladder can be experienced at all. Can movement exist without a final arrival? Notice that every attempt to reach reality is itself an experience. That experience appears. It is known. It passes. Where does it appear? Within reality. Seeking thoughts arise within reality. Doubt arises within reality. Hope arises within reality. Confusion arises within reality. None of these ever step outside reality. Even the idea I am separate from reality appears within reality. This means separation is not a fact. It is a thought occurring within what it denies. Ibn Arabi emphasized that reality is not something that occasionally shows up. It is the constant condition of all showing up. It is not present in some experiences and absent in others. It is present as the very fact of experience. How could what contains all movement itself be approached? You began with the assumption that reality must be reached. You end with a question about whether it was ever distant. Reality has never been hidden. Reality has never been waiting. Reality has never been elsewhere. The impulse to seek arose from a misunderstanding about location. Nothing fundamental has ever been out of reach. If reality cannot be reached because it was never absent, what was ever meant by seeking?